I'd like to call the meeting of September 16th, 2013, Housing Authority to order. Hello, hey Tom, we were just talking about you. Hearing you arrived. I want to review and approve the minutes of the meetings of July 22nd, 2013.
I would move that we accepted and presented.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We have no residents with us tonight, sadly to say. This is not really what we normally see here at Hayes Court. So we will go on to our business of the evening. Staff reports. Property manager for review of the non-smoking policy, other housing developments, and the information regarding the e-cigarettes. Chris, do you have anything to add on that?
No, I hope this is the information that you all were looking for. If not, we will try again.
I don't think all the information is out there yet, because every day you read in the paper something else about these. I still have a real concern about these because they're not regulated and nobody really knows what's in them, and there could be secondhand, chemicals that are coming out on everybody. But every day in the paper there's something about e-cigarettes. Not Brattleboro, the other papers that I read.
We were talking about those e-cigarettes just recently. I think, Tom, you had mentioned a piece on that.
Right.
You sent something out to us.
I did send something.
Yeah. And I was just wondering, do you have anything you want to add to
Well, I've been reading a lot about them, and as far as health is concerned, they seem to be more healthful, if you could use that word, or less unhealthful. But none of the evidence is in. It's really just too new for it to be a tremendous amount of information available. It's tough to get. I wasn't concerned with secondhand smoke because there is no smoke. I have observed or been in the presence of people smoking these things, if you can even use that word, and you don't smell anything at all. I could be next to her and I wouldn't even be smelling it. The thing I was most concerned with is that they seem to be far less likely to cause a fire. And I've been investigating that. They contain a battery. It's a lithium-ion type battery, and this particular type of battery is more susceptible than other batteries to burning. So there have been a couple of instances of some fires that were attributable to this battery. I did go and contact a couple of people, a fellow named of Robert, he's named after, same name as an actor. He's with the National Fire Protection Association, and he had done in 2007 a PowerPoint on e-cigarettes, which is available on the net. That's how I contacted him. Duvall, his name is Robert Duvall. It's not the same guy. And he said that, yes, there was a couple of incidents of fires attributable to these batteries. He says, but for every one, there was probably 1,000 incidences of fires attributable to these same batteries in cell phones. They're in cell phones, they're in computers, they're a very popular form of battery. And while he said he hadn't done any real intense research in it, he thought it was a non-issue. I've been trying to get a hold of the fire marshal in Vermont to get some feedback from them, but I have not been able to speak to the guy. So right now, I guess my suggestion is we should continue studying it a little bit more, try and find out. Health is not one of our issues. We're not concerned, we can't concern ourselves with what people do to their own bodies. Oh, we might like to, I don't think it's appropriate. But we do have a right to concern what you're doing and how it might affect me.
Right.
And in my particular case, living in a high-rise where we've had fires attributable, I'm nervous about that, and I frankly consider something like an e-cigarette as a safety valve. Someone who has a cigarette habit and wakes up in the middle of the night might just be able to get rid of that particular urge at that particular time with an e-cigarette without much chance of causing a fire. Where, again, speaking to the guy from the Fire Protection Association, he says the incidences of smoldering cigarettes causing fires are astronomical. So I think we should continue, I will particularly continue to try to find some more information. But I think we have enough time to study it a little bit more and be more sure about what it is we want to do.
I just want to mention something that
Yes.
Heidi has in here,
Mhm.
and it says, while it's on page 3 in the secondhand smoke, while they may not emit an odor, they do emit a vapor, and that is, when what is in the vapor and the effect it has on the person breathing it in, secondhand smoke, is yet to be determined. And down below, health concerns exist about the safety of e-cigarettes to non-smokers. A study published in February 2010 found that nicotine causes the formation of carcinogens when it reacts with nitrous acid, a common component of indoor air. So that's where a lot of my concern is. We don't know what it does to the other person. And it might just be even more, it could even, and they also, in some place in here, what I've also read is that the FDA, when they have tested them, have found them all being very different. Every e-cigarette that they tested was very different, what they emitted and the chemicals that are in the e-cigarette and the amount of chemicals that are in them. So I'm really just still concerned about this, and especially since they're non-regulated.
Well, we have starts off as Heidi had put on here, the Brattleboro Housing Authority smoke-free policy for Hayes Court and Samuel Elliott will be in effect as of May 1st, 2014. Do you know if that's changed?
No, it is not. It's been adopted, and it's, Tom is absolutely correct that there's more time
Yeah.
to look into these. I think you both bring up very good points about them. Certainly, we have another concern, and that's may seem trivial, but it is a concern about enforcement. And property managers that have allowed e-cigarettes have found them to add to an enforcement problem, if you will. Non-smoking is an enforcement, a bit of a nightmare all by itself. When you add something like an e-cigarette that somebody can smoke, and it looks like a cigarette, and they can say, well, I was smoking an e-cigarette, but you don't know whether they really were or not. And then people start complaining, and the person that's smoking says, no, they're all e-cigarettes, but then the residents are saying, but I keep smelling smoke. So, from that trivial standpoint.
Just to comment on that, is some of the stuff I have heard, that exact stuff is coming up in the restaurant industry. They're really having a big problem because in many states you can't smoke in restaurants, and people are smoking e-cigarettes, and people are I'm not smoking, and they allow them to smoke it, and another person said, well, why don't you let me?
It's going to become more of an issue everywhere.
Right.
It will be an issue until it's finally resolved one way or another.
And I think, Chris, the biggest concern that I would say that I have about them is the lack of information on them.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of conflicting things. They're just fine. There's nothing to them. That's a toxic element, and it's even worse than nicotine because you can't see it.
Right.
The person could be smoking and nothing.
Smell, right.
You don't see anything coming out, and you're getting a whole bunch of nasty chemicals. So I think the lack of information on them is it's hard for us. I think it's hard for everybody. So,
Again, for what it's worth, my searches on the web found almost universal approval. But if you read between the lines, the people who were doing the approval had a stake in the issue.
Yeah.
Well, when we started with the smoking policy, it was all because of the smoke, the secondhand smoke. You remember?
Complaints.
And the complaints.
well,
with
and
all
the
of
fires.
them.
And the fire.
Yeah.
The fires.
And this wasn't even a factor. Now it's all like, everything is resorted back on these e-cigarettes, you know? And I'm just saying, oh my God.
Well, they're the new fad.
Oh,
They
yeah.
come in all different colors, in different flavors.
Crazy
Well-
what we see, you can even buy them that don't contain nicotine.
Well, we will definitely keep it in our thoughts and our discussions. Very good. Any other comments on the smoking policies for the moment, anyway?
Well, I would just report what else I'm able to find out from the
Okay.
fire
Fair enough.
people. Because I'm still waiting for answers there.
All right, thanks, Tom. We get a request here to approve write-offs on the account at Samuel Elliott Apartments in the amount of $3,492.29. What is your pleasure on that?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded for these write-offs in Samuel Elliott Apartments of $3,492.29. Any further discussion?
I guess I'd just like to know what it's about.
It's a tenant who left a balance, and that is the
And
balance.
we have, it's not wise to go track of it.
Well, we write off accounts formally off of our books, but we continue to seek
So to
payment.
make the books balance,
Yes.
it has
I
to be
mean,
done.
well, because you don't want a lot of, heavy 160-day old
Oh,
accounts.
yeah.
But we continue to pursue collection.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. And this one is one where we have some chance of collection. We know we're doing it. Some people, we don't know what they're at.
Put one of those things on their tire with their car.
Yeah.
Boots, they call them boots.
Call the
So,
question. You want to vote on that?
I didn't hear the seconder.
The motion's been made and seconded, and all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Motion carries. Program manager,
Can we do this? Because I wanted to make a comment on this, the rent collection performance. I just wanted, on the rent collection performance, I just wanted to note that on Ledgewood, the amount that has gone up from like the low 90s or high 80% to 96%, and that's really good.
for Ledgewood?
Yeah. Down on the second page.
Yeah. 96.3.
Yeah. So whoever is keeping up on that, that's great.
And actually, both Northport and Ledgewood were very good.
Very good, right.
Yeah, Ledgewood was really, that stood out.
I think it's mentioned in the reports, but one of the things that has happened is that the Family Self-Sufficiency Program, Lucy's program for public housing, she's working very closely with the property managers on ensuring that rent is getting paid by anybody that's in her program. So they've really closed circles around that, and as you read in their reports, they're really focusing a lot on budget and money management and the importance of rent. But thank you, Chris. Duly noted.
Number 2, program manager, the FSS, PH and HCD, resident coordinator, SASH coordinator. Do we have a piece here for SASH?
Yeah. Oh, so that's
Just hope the frost doesn't ruin their vegetable garden that they worked on.
Well, they've got good hardy plants in there that they put in.
Well, you're talking to someone who knows nothing about gardening, so.
Oh.
Does anybody have any comments on the SASH report?
Just to note that we are starting another full panel, half a panel, and it will become a full panel on October 1. Sandy Brodsky, who's been part-time with us, is going full-time.
It's good to see that that's growing that rapidly,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, we really are very fortunate. We have a really excellent SASH team, and the good problem that I have is to keep the SASH powers that be from pulling my SASH staff up to do training with other people.
Oh, okay.
Stop it, let them do their work down here.
Yeah.
They're very well respected and taught very well.
But the folks in SASH know that if they want to train people, they should come down here and work with Right Saddle for a while.
That's
OJT it's called, on-the-job training.
SAS has grown to 2 full panels
Yeah.
as of October the 1st.
200 people.
Very good.
200 people.
Yeah.
200 households, yeah.
And they're also going out to the community too?
Yes.
is that Good.
They're, as you've read in the report, going to focus on the high-rise and Hayes Court, and then from there move out into, and we're sort of working on a plan about how to start with other congregate housing providers and then into the larger community. But SASH is very well known in the community and by the community providers, so they get a lot of referrals. And Christine said they're still signing up 1 to 2 people a week.
Very good.
Fantastic.
Anything else as far
May I
as
ask?
SASH? Yeah.
Are things going as well with the mitigation as I suspect they are?
They're going very well,
Good.
yeah.
Because I've been watching the preparations as the reports come through. I think people are doing a very complete and thoughtful job, trying to make things as easy on our tenants as possible.
Yeah.
For the interpreter, can someone spell out SASH? Let me know the words that it stands
It's,
for again.
no, go ahead. It changed.
Support and services at home.
And services at home.
Yeah.
I still think of it under the first name that it had,
Thank you.
so I don't trust myself.
Supports and services at home.
Yeah. Just so we don't forget Chelsea too, resident services, she seems to have a full plate on here with what she's doing and everything she's getting involved in, the RAP program. That's great, really is.
And I hope you saw the articles in the paper about the Ledgewood murals.
I did,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And I'm really thrilled with these lunches being done in conjunction with the senior meals program. So that's, yeah.
I'm glad Chelsea was involved because I had a comment from someone here who really found that all of the experience of the flood came back when there were pods where building materials, not building materials, where their household materials were stored while the hazard mitigation was going on. So you may get some post-traumatic stress response from residents because of the similarity of the situation 2 years ago with Tropical Storm Irene.
We have, and we've, I think the staff has found a very gentle way to have a conversation with people about that this is very, very different from that event. That event was one that happened to us, and this is one in which we are in charge of. And in particular, though, I have 4 pods that I've been looking at, and it's a bummer to see again. And one of the buildings is sort of torn apart on the exterior, and it's like, oh man. But we're really sort of we're in control of this, and we learned some things, especially with respect to the pods and people's furniture and things that are going into them, in terms of really putting up big, strong barriers. You know, if somebody has to share a pod, well, their stuff goes in, and then we're putting up a lot of plastic. And no, we're very sorry, but you cannot go back in there. So we're really taking things that we learned from that experience and bringing it into this. And I think the staff has really been very considerate of how people are feeling around having a lot of this stuff back. We have a big dumpster now. I mean, and one of the buildings are getting torn apart. And it's like, oh man. And we all recognize that that's, you know, nobody likes it. And we haven't been able to paint, and, you know, just a lot of stuff. So it's a good point, and we're keenly aware of it. I think the other part of it is that for those that are new to Melrose, they didn't have to go through that, and they've heard about it, and now they're just getting the littlest bit of a glimpse of what kind of horrific inconvenience, to put it lightly, that was on people, and what it must have been like to have all your stuff taken away and stuff apart. So in a way, it's sort of giving everybody a sense of that experience, and while we don't wish to be doing that, I do feel that the staff is being very understanding, spending a lot of time talking to people. Heidi and Chelsea and Christina spent a lot of time thinking about relocation and the moving of things, and just little things. So
That's what I meant by saying I've been reading the reports, and I was impressed with the way that staff had gone about it.
I know, just coming down the street into Melrose, because I haven't been down there, but I was doing checks this month, and seeing that pod there, I had a jolt. You know, just, it was, ooh, deja vu, not nice deja vu either, but just...
I had a similar feeling.
Yeah.
yeah, I do too. I'm looking at 4 of them.
Well, we had our Irene and stuff that came through our little town, and then I look in Denver, Colorado, and see those
Wow.
floods that they're having on.
Unbelievable.
Oh, yeah, a heck of a lot of rain Thursday.
We did, you're right, we did, and I just assumed, my God, it's going to be a deja vu here. You know,
Oh,
it's
Elm
coming
Street's
back.
still closed.
Yeah.
I actually went by in Melrose and I looked at the brook. I couldn't help it. It was coming home that day.
Okay. The HCV administrator, I believe that's on this yellow sheet of paper.
What about
What is it?
that's David?
Oh, that's
I
on,
think that was,
that's on the vouchers and stuff.
okay. Oh, okay, I thought you had gone by that already, I'm sorry.
No, haven't gone by there. But, Chris, do you have anything on the information here on the approval of the kerosene utility?
It's in your packet, it's
Yep.
3A, it's right after the minutes
Yes,
in my
right
packet.
this piece here.
We sent this around for an email approval, and now I would ask that you formally approve it. We have a landlord that is switching to kerosene, and we did not have a kerosene utility allowance, so we'd like to add the Vermont State Housing Authority kerosene utility allowance to our set of utility allowances. We follow the Vermont State utility allowances by and large, pretty much, go according to their numbers, unless we really think their numbers are too far out of whack one way or the other with Wyndham County. But so that's what I would ask. It's the one starred on the page 3A.
Yeah.
I would move we adopt the kerosene allowances as shown on the provided schedule.
And second it?
I will.
Yes, okay, Tom did. Any further discussion?
Why would the landlord want to switch to kerosene, which looks so much more expensive than anything else? But that's not for us to know. But I think it's very appropriate that we adopt the guidelines because that's what our client is going to be faced with.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Slide number,
It's the second page of the kerosene.
yeah. Section 8.
Yeah.
So we can,
It's on this one.
No, the chart is on the
Oh.
second page of the kerosene.
I can't. It's on the back of this. That's on the back of this. Oh, yeah. Yep. Section 8, vouchers.
Well, the Vermont Association of Public Housing Executive Directors has been obviously talking a lot about the cuts in Section 8. And we thought it would be interesting in terms of statewide discussions that we intend to have, to take a look at how many of our community land trusts are, how many of our vouchers are being used in community land trust properties, and what that means as the program continues to get cut, the potential impact on the housing trust. What you see is what we would consider to be an extremely conservative number of 885 vouchers. Vermont State didn't have the time to look more closely at their numbers. They believe that that total should be closer to 1,000 vouchers. And you can see that in all, the housing authorities in Vermont are paying $538,000 per month to the community land trust on Section 8 vouchers. So
Did that come out in our?
it did.
I don't see it.
Where's the kerosene? I can't.
Yeah, it's attached to the kerosene.
Thank you.
So that's that is a considerable amount of money when you look at it, and when you realize that that's probably that's very much on the conservative side. So in terms of the statewide discussion of the impact on these cuts on Section 8, there are cuts to our program participants, there are cuts to the housing authorities, and they are going to have a pretty significant impact on the housing land trust. By and large, and it's a number that we can't really get to easily, in a building, in a land trust building, where they have, let's say, a couple market-rated units, those market-rated units are often units subsidized by the maximum amount that the Section 8 voucher can pay. So that's, and we understand that. That's, so they have other units and maybe a voucher is in another unit, but that number is capped. They'll take their market rated units, and that's where they'll put in a Section 8 because they can then charge us the maximum amount. So that's a number that we can't really sift out of here because of the way the subsidies move in a building. But when you think of that as really key to their being able to make buildings cash flow, because their margins are very, very thin. They really are thin. Then this data and this information is even more important. And from a statewide standpoint, it really speaks to the direct tie that the Section 8 cutbacks for public housing and our participants are going to have with this other larger entity of housing provision in the state. So I thought it was of interest and I wanted you all to see it. And it is something that we will be talking about on a statewide basis with folks.
Did these include, and I don't have the right word for it, but the, like the apartment down at the co-op building that has the voucher that goes along with it all the time?
The upper story.
Yeah.
The project-based?
Project-based, yeah. Does that include project-based?
This could.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
In the long run, that could be rather disastrous for some of the housing trusts.
Very.
They've made some long-term projections based upon receiving this income.
Right.
If it's not coming in, they're going to have to scramble.
Right. Yeah. And they really do have a very thin margin.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. Yeah.
So it's, yeah, it's
Well, it also affects some mom and pop, people who rent a spare apartment in the open garage.
oh, sure. I mean, the Section 8 cuts are bad for everybody. We just wanted to look at this as a particular housing provider in the state. Okay.
Property redevelopment manager. Hazard mitigation underway for interior of Melrose Apartments. How's that coming, Chris? That's coming
I
well?
think we talked about that with pods and,
Yeah, right. Status of the Brook capacity study with Stephen Associates Engineer.
we had a meeting last week with Stevens and Housing Vermont, a few others, and we're having a meeting either this week or next week with folks from the State Agency of Natural Resources and the Rivers people to talk about what Stevens has found in their analysis of the brook and the pinch points, if you will, going through Melrose, and what strategies might need to be employed in order to have some of that land be viable in the future, the Melrose.
Good.
Can I ask, go back just and ask a question on the Section 8?
You sure can. Yeah.
On that Shelter Plus Care, where we're finding that after the incident that occurred, does this affect us losing, or just us, or the agencies that are supposed to be dealing with the people? I know that didn't come out right. However, I'll say it.
I think what we found is that some of the agencies involved in case management have not been performing to the level that we believe they need to in order to continue to be performing those services under the grant. Our concern is, one, the participant, who is a very, a person who really needs the program and needs good case management, isn't getting it. And there is significant liability involved for landlords, the participants, and frankly, the housing authority. So we want to visit with those agencies and I think get much clearer around expectations for case management.
Okay. It doesn't affect us losing some of these vouchers, does it?
No.
Okay,
It does not. In fact, it will, I think it'll ensure that we retain the program.
Okay. Moving along here, financial review. The monthly check listings. Green pieces of paper here. Anybody has any question on those? Speak now, or forever hold your peace. Monthly checks listings. Check signers, September Chris, October Tom, November Janet.
And I have a request to switch from whomever will be doing December, because I realize I have to be out of town 2 of the 4 Fridays in November. So, or I would be happy to be out of town on 1, it's 2 Fridays in October, so I would know.
All right, so November is up.
November is up for grabs, so I'll do December.
Everybody seems to be looking to the central.
Well, there are only 2 names that aren't on here, fellas.
That was.
But
Marshall
everybody
has got a
was
lot.
looking to the south, so I gather it's, including one of the fellows, so I gather it's my turn in November.
Or I would be happy to do the 2
No, I think we got it.
Friday, okay. All right.
Marshall's doing November. Thank you.
Janet, you said.
Janet's doing December.
Yes, thank you very much. Anita will be much relieved.
I did have a question on the check signing.
Did?
Yeah. Let me reach my note here. Who or what is Chester Gage Housing Limited?
Oh, I will tell you about that in executive session because that's a contract that we signed.
Okay.
Report on the auditor's visit.
Yes, the auditors visited. We had them here for 2.5 days. It was, by and large, very positive audit. Unfortunately, the audit standards for the Section 8 program have changed, and it has not been the subject of the audit for at least 2 years. So we do anticipate a program finding, not a financial finding, but a program finding in the Section 8 program. There were certain documents that the auditors were looking for in the files, original documents, like when somebody entered the program, they wanted to see the original, what was it? The original verification of citizenship. And we didn't have it anymore because we do it every year, so every year when it's updated, it gets taken out. So that was a finding. There were many of those kinds of things in the files. So while there were areas where David was able to actually find some of this paperwork, it wasn't enough. We didn't find enough to wipe out that finding. So it will be a finding in the audit. It is contained to the files. It is a program finding, And it's specifically about certain documentation that the staff had taken out when they got new ones. And the new auditing guidelines are, they want to see everything back to when the person started in the program.
So that sounds like it would be an audit finding every year.
No, it won't.
Oh, okay, they're only doing it this year, or?
Well, for one, the program won't be audited every year.
Okay.
And what they're doing is where they can go back and get that data or that documentation, they're getting it and they're putting it in the file. So they're correcting it to the extent that they can. And given that it was a finding, it's not a finding that would be replaced. You know, they wouldn't find it again
Okay.
because they already found it.
Okay.
And we all said, yep, we know, we've done this, this program's been audited many times before, and it's never been a problem. So it was quite a surprise and unfortunate.
It does, you know, if they just changed that regulation, it would seem that every year after the regulation was changed, it would be applicable, not for something that did not have that regulation before. That would be like as of 2008, you would have to keep the original in there, but anyone before that would not. So that's kind of odd,
I had a conversation with somebody about something like this today, and I said there are times when you should not try to apply logic and rational thinking.
Working with the government.
Sorry, I have an accounting mind.
Yeah, one would think that they might, but the OIG and those that are setting the new audit standards just
Okay.
settle and say, go back, and it's not there. Yeah.
Okay.
So but I did want to tell you about it because it will be a finding in the audit report, but it's not a financial matter at all. There were no financial problems at all with the audit.
Good.
It was,
Mary around, I really
excellent.
doubt there would be.
yeah, no, it was, with that exception, it was an excellent audit.
Good.
Okey-doke. Other business? Suggestions for our annual meeting to be held on November the 18th.
Annual meeting is coming up. We've done different things. I think last year we did it at the River Garden because it was our 50th. We've had speakers. We've done different things. I just didn't know if you all had any thoughts about the annual meeting. If you don't have them now, and you have any, I'd love to hear them because I'm sort of, don't want to say thoughtless, but I'm out of thoughts.
Well, the only thing that comes to my mind is someone who could talk about what's happening in Washington about housing. That may be a downer for an annual meeting, but I think it's very important. Perhaps a representative.
Timing is right.
Timing is right. Perhaps a representative from Senator Sanders or a representative.
Sure.
Right. Also, if we can manage something like that, we might want to start talking to the reformer and the Commons about covering the meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think people kind of get the impression that the results of sequestration is all happening to governmental employees somewhere out there, and don't realize that it's building like a tsunami for some of the folks in this community.
What do you think about Mike McNamara?
He was the first one I thought of, but I didn't know.
He's our
Yeah.
the HUD representative in Vermont.
We'll be here on the 26th, whatever it is. 24th.
He's got about 35 years in housing and the last 15 at HUD, and is very articulate on sequestration and on housing
Mhm.
Was he up at your meeting?
Yes,
he
Yes, he was.
Yeah, I thought I saw his name.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it'd be excellent.
Oh, I'll see
Me
if
too.
Mike will come.
I had a thought too, because a lot of times we don't get people, residents coming to that meeting. And maybe now that we're getting a bus driver, we might be able to have people, bus to the meeting if they'd like to come.
Uh-huh,
Worth a try.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I can put our favorite resident services coordinator on.
Would the River Garden be available for something like that?
Oh, I don't.
That's
Boy,
kind
I-
of problematical now, since the
Yeah,
status
right.
of the River Garden itself is problematical.
There was a meeting there a couple of weeks ago. I mean, somebody had rented it to use it for that, for a meeting one afternoon.
Actually, on the 10th, the Brattleboro Film Festival will be having a gala there. That's not that far away from
Who
the
who is this,
18th.
Mary?
Brattleboro Film Festival?
Mhm. October?
November?
No, it's in November.
November 10th.
But I'll contact the ABB and see.
Well, wouldn't it be
Well, I
Stroll.
don't know if it's.
whether they have a
Yeah, I don't-
changed?
yeah,
That's
I don't
what I
know.
meant.
Yeah.
I think it'd still be ABBs. So,
Cooperating with each other.
If not, they'll be able to tell us.
yeah, I'll start with them. So you'd like to have it there?
I thought it went very well.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
yeah.
Great, thank you. Terrific.
Is there any other business to come before the meeting?
I would move we enter executive session to discuss legal matters, personnel, and contracts.
Second?
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We will move into executive session.